You bet. Here is the English version of the script, with all subtitles, instructions, and author's notes removed. Pope Benedict XVI kept a secret for 60 years that would forever change how you see this man. And no, it wasn't about celibacy or scandals in the church. It was a personal confession he made in 2016, at age 89, that literally shatters everything you think about his childhood during World War II. If you are Catholic and think you know Joseph Ratzinger, you are missing the most human and touching part of his life. If you're not Catholic, get ready to discover why this German who lived under Hitler became one of history's greatest defenders of human freedom. Because in the next few minutes, 4 intimate secrets that Benedict XVI hid for decades will be revealed, secrets he only disclosed in his last interviews. And there's a revelation about what he was really thinking on the night before his resignation that will leave you speechless about the true weight of being Pope. So stick around until the end. For 20 years, German journalist Peter Seewald conducted over 100 hours of exclusive interviews with Joseph Ratzinger, from his time as a cardinal to his final years as Pope Emeritus. Analyzing more than 1,200 pages of intimate conversations recorded in the books Salt of the Earth, God and the World, Light of the World, and Last Testament, one thing is clear: 95% of people, including devout Catholics, have no idea of this man's extraordinary personal journey. In the next few minutes, you will discover the 4 most shocking truths that Benedict XVI revealed about himself, the childhood trauma that almost made him give up the priesthood, why he considered the papal election a guillotine for his life, what really happened on the night he decided to resign, and the personal prophecy he made about his own death. What most people don't understand about Joseph Ratzinger is that he never wanted to be Pope. And Benedict XVI not only resisted the papal call, he literally begged God not to be chosen, using words he had never publicly revealed. The difference between the public image of a conservative pope and the real Joseph Ratzinger is that while the world saw a man of absolute certainties, he lived a constant inner struggle between profound doubts and heroic faith. While other religious leaders build invincible personas, Ratzinger revealed a vulnerability that makes him more human than any saint in history. Let's get straight to the confessions he kept for decades. In 2010, at age 83, Benedict XVI dropped an emotional bomb about his childhood that few paid attention to at the time. He revealed that during the years 1943 to 1945, when he was forced to serve in the Nazi anti-aircraft defense at age 16, he lived through the most traumatic period of his life. And he proved it in a devastating way. First, he said it wasn't just the fear of war that tormented him. It was the discovery that his own fellow Germans were capable of monstrosities. I saw soldiers returning from the front with empty eyes, he said. And I began to understand that something terrible was happening in my country's name. Second, he revealed that during those years, he questioned for the first time whether God really existed. Not out of teenage rebellion, but because evil seemed so organized, so systematic, that it was difficult to believe there was a divine providence. He spent entire nights praying, God, if you exist, why do you allow this? But here's the part he had never told. Ratzinger revealed that he seriously thought about leaving the seminary in 1946, a year after the war. Not out of a loss of faith, but out of a profound sense of unworthiness. How can I preach about the goodness of God, he thought, after having seen what men are capable of? And then he made a devastating confession. He said that his decision to continue in the priesthood did not come from a mystical revelation, but from a conversation with his mother, Maria Ratzinger. She told him, Joseph, it is precisely because you have seen evil up close that you can help others find the light. Those words, he said, saved his vocation. In 2016, he was even more direct. For decades, I carried the weight of having lived under Nazism. Not guilt for what I did, but guilt for having survived when so many innocent people died. But this youthful trauma was just the beginning of an even more complex journey. What Benedict XVI discovered about himself when he became Pope is even more disturbing. And the way he dealt with the weight of the papacy caused a personal crisis that almost no one noticed. He described his election with a word that no one would expect from a pope. Now get ready for the most intimate revelation. In April 2005, during the conclave that would elect him Pope, Joseph Ratzinger experienced what he called psychological agony. The media showed his election as a triumph, but when you read his confessions to Peter Seewald, you discover something completely different. Ratzinger did not celebrate when he learned he would be pope. He panicked. His exact words were, "I felt as if a guillotine had fallen on my life." He revealed disturbing details of what happened behind the scenes. In the second ballot, when he realized he was getting a lot of votes, he began to pray desperately, "God, please make these votes decrease." In the third ballot, when he had almost the necessary majority, his hands began to tremble uncontrollably. It was pure terror, he confessed. The most touching moment, when he was officially elected, his first thought was not of gratitude, but of revolt. "Why me, God? At 78, I just wanted to study and write. Why give me this burden now?" But here's the brilliant insight. Ratzinger said it was precisely this internal resistance that convinced him that God was really calling him. "If I wanted to be pope," he said, "that would be a sign that I shouldn't be. But because I didn't want it, maybe it was a sign that I should accept." And then he revealed the most intimate secret. During the first 6 months of his papacy, he woke up every morning at 4 a.m. with the same prayer, "God, give me strength for this day, because I don't know if I will be able to do it." The deepest crisis came in 2009, during the sexual abuse scandal. He confessed that he had considered resigning several times before 2013. "There were nights," he said, "when I cried alone in my room, asking if I had enough strength to clean the wounds of the church." The solution? He created a prayer routine that few people know about. Every night before going to bed, he would ask God for forgiveness not only for the sins he had committed, but for the sins he could not prevent as pope. "I carried the weight of every abuse victim," he confessed. "As if I had personally failed each one of them." In 2016, Joseph Ratzinger made a revelation about the night of February 10, 2013, the eve of the announcement of his resignation, that is like a page torn from an intimate diary. He said he spent the entire night awake, not out of doubt about the decision, but out of fear of the global reaction. "I knew I would be accused of cowardice, of abandonment, of breaking a millennial tradition." Look at the details of that night. At 2 a.m., I got up and went to my office. I took a sheet of paper and wrote 2 letters. One announcing the resignation. The other explaining why I had changed my mind and would continue. At 4 a.m., I was in the private chapel. I couldn't pray normal words. I just kept repeating, "Jesus, what do you want from me?" For a whole hour. At 6 a.m., I burned the second letter. The decision was made. An analysis of what really happened, Ratzinger revealed that the decision was not sudden, as many thought. He had been feeling physical and mental decline since 2011. "I realized that I was making small mistakes that a pope cannot make. I would forget the names of cardinals, I would get confused on important dates." But the most impressive part is that he revealed he had a specific mystical experience that confirmed his decision. "On the morning of February 11th, I woke up with a peace I hadn't felt in years. It was as if Jesus had told me, 'It's okay, you can rest now.'" But perhaps the most disturbing revelation is a prophecy that Benedict XVI made about himself in 2016, at age 89. During his last interview with Peter Seewald, Ratzinger made predictions about his own death that came true in a frightening way. He said verbatim, "I feel that my time is coming to an end. Not because of illness, but because of an inner certainty. I believe that I will die in silence, as befits someone who served the church discreetly. The most touching detail, I hope to die during the Christmas season, when the church celebrates the coming of the light into the world. It would be appropriate for someone who always sought to be a little light." And he made one last devastating confession, "Throughout my life, I have fought against intellectual pride. I feared that my love for books was greater than my love for God. Only now, near the end, do I feel that I have finally found the balance." In December 2022, Joseph Ratzinger died exactly as he had predicted, in silence, during the Christmas season, surrounded only by books and prayers. What few people know is that he left personal letters to be opened after his death. The content was never disclosed, but sources close to him reveal that they are reflections on the mistakes he made and the graces he received. And now, the revelation I promised at the beginning. The real Joseph Ratzinger that not even his biographers know completely. Everyone thinks that Benedict XVI was a man of absolute certainties. But his confessions to Peter Seewald reveal the exact opposite. He was a man of deep doubts who chose to believe despite them. In 2010, he made a confession that would change how anyone sees faith. There are days when I wake up and I don't feel God. There are moments when the sky seems empty and my prayers seem to echo in the void. But I choose to believe not because of feelings, but despite them. What really happened is that Ratzinger developed a spirituality based not on mystical consolation, but on heroic fidelity. Mature faith, he said, is not never doubting. It is to continue loving when doubts arise. This explains why he resigned with such serenity and why he spent his last years in contemplative silence. It was not a giving up, but the culmination of a 60-year spiritual journey. The last thing he said to Peter Seewald was prophetic. I hope people remember me not as the Pope who resigned, but as the man who tried to serve the truth with total honesty, even when that honesty was inconvenient. So, after all this, one thing is clear: Joseph Ratzinger was not a cold marble saint. He was a man of flesh and blood who transformed deep traumas into wisdom, doubts into heroic faith, and fear into extraordinary courage. His confessions about his traumatic childhood, his resistance to the papacy, and his constant inner struggle were not signs of weakness. They were evidence of a brutal honesty that few religious leaders have the courage to show. And perhaps the most important lesson is that true holiness is not the absence of doubts, but fidelity despite doubts. As he said, God does not ask us to be perfect. He asks us to be honest. If this has changed your perspective on Pope Benedict XVI and what it really means to follow God, leave a comment. Which of these revelations touched your heart the most? And if you know someone who still thinks that faith is only for perfect people, share this video. In the next videos, we will delve even deeper into the last spiritual messages that Benedict XVI left for humanity before he died. Until then, remember, God does not call the perfect, he perfects those he calls.